From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Evening Edition.
And we begin tonight with breaking news. The Senate is the closest it has been to a deal that could soon lead to reopening the federal government.
Right now, the Senate is voting on a key procedural step in the process that could potentially end the longest shutdown in U.S. history. Here's
a live look at the Senate floor where the upper chamber is meeting tonight in special session. Already, 8 Democrats have crossed the aisle to vote in favor of advancing the funding measure, which would fund the government through January 30th.
The sticking point remains Affordable Care Act tax credits, with Senator Tim Kaine indicating that part of the revised deal includes a guaranteed vote on the ACA subsidies at a later date. We will update you with the result of the vote when we have it, and if passed here in the Senate, the measure would return to the House for another vote.
And while the shutdown continues, its impact on air travel has been pretty bad this weekend. Right now, more than 9,000 flights have been delayed today alone,
while there are 3,000 more cancellations outright at airports across the U.S.
Those disruptions could get worse if a deal is not reached tonight. Earlier, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy warned air travel could slow to a trickle.
You're going to see air travel be reduced to a trickle. We have a number of people who want to get home for the holidays. They want to see their family. They want to celebrate this great American holiday. Listen, many of them are not going to be able to get on an airplane because there are not going to be that many flights that fly if this thing doesn't open back up.
The FAA says these cuts are necessary to keep air travel safe, but many passengers say that even with the effort to prevent problems in the sky, they are still on edge.
Dahlin is at SFO with that part of the story. Don?
Yeah, Brian, Andrea, a lot of passengers tell me had they known how hard the shutdown would hit the air traffic controllers, they would have postponed their trip. Now, a lot of these folks booked their trips months ago, long before the shutdown. They say aside from safety concerns, there's also this hassle as well of dealing with delays and cancellations. FlightAware telling us today at SFO, 47 cancellations and about 215 delays. The Edelman family is riding out a 2-hour delay at SFO, hoping to get home to New Jersey.
We're not going to be home until well after midnight, which, for the kids is going to be a tough turnaround for school in the morning.
Our son is going to be graduating high school, so we're visiting colleges out in California. That trip would have been postponed.
Helicopter 77.
They're worried about safety, especially as air traffic controllers work under the stress of no pay and mandatory overtime.
958 will be ready for departure, 1 left.
If we had to plan it all over again, knowing that you have the staffing shortages that are in effect now, I think we would have absolutely delayed this trip and planned it for a different time.
They're not alone. This delayed passenger from Arizona says he would have canceled his trip had he known.
I'm a nervous flyer, so I hope they're doing what they need to do to keep us safe. I assume they are. I do know a lot of people are working without getting paid.
But many aviation experts say even with the distractions controllers are facing, it remains safe to fly.
I would fly personally. I would not be afraid to fly. I'm confident that the workforce is dedicated and that they know when to say uncle when the traffic gets too heavy for them.
Harvey Skolnick is a retired air traffic controller of 38 years. He says, yes, it's tough to focus when controllers worry about mortgages or picking up second jobs, especially with the Bay Area's high cost of living. But he stresses the men and women in the towers are highly trained professionals.
When I had emotional factors that were affecting my life, when I sat down at that radar scope and I plugged in and I said, turn right heading 130, climb and maintain 5,000, that's all I thought of.
If you didn't have to fly, maybe it's a better time not to fly right now.
Julie Gainsley is a retired flight attendant of 48 years. She now works as an airport concierge at SFO.
I would choose not to fly at this time, not so much because it's not safe, but because it's a hassle. It's long lines, canceled flights, not getting you where you really want to go on time.
Even though she had a few close calls in her career, Julie believes flying is still the safest way to travel. But it's a tough sell for the Edelman family and others seeing staffing shortages growing across the country.
Who wants to bring their family aboard a plane when you don't know that you have the absolute ideal conditions?
Here's a live look at a TSA security checkpoint at SFO. Traffic is picking up as people are heading home as we speak. Now, typically Sunday is one of the busiest days at SFO. The on-duty manager says they typically see about 160,000 passengers, and that number is only expected to grow as we get closer to Thanksgiving. Brian, Andrea, everybody is hoping this shutdown will end very soon.
Well, it might happen tonight. I mean, we'll find, at least they'll take a big step toward having it end tonight. We will find out. Let's dial in at SFO. Duh. Thank you. And the other news tonight, a magnitude 3.8 earthquake in San Ramon kicked off a swarm of quakes this morning, including a 3.7 aftershock. In the hour, 3 more quakes hit the same general area. Finally, an 8th earthquake hit just before noon. Shaking was felt from Vallejo to Fremont. 2 folks in San Ramon tell us what went through their minds when the shaking started.
I screamed and I called my husband and he told me hold the window.
We were just preparing, our morning towels and stuff, and that's when I felt the floor shaking. And then it was just an instant jerk, and everything kind of rattled around. So it definitely left me rattled up a little bit.
And Darren's got more on all of this. Darren?
And it's worth looking at this in the context on the virtual map. When we do that, you can see the major faults. We know the San Andreas, the Hayward. Come take a close look at where this swarm happened today. Calaveras Fault, another big one, doesn't get mentioned as much, but you can see that's the red line there, which is pretty much going through where San Ramon is. But there's another line on there. See that white line back there? That's the Diablo Fault. Sits at the base of Mount Diablo. It's a thrust fault, and it's actually the fault that's responsible for lifting Mount Diablo. Let's see if we can get the imaging over here. It's probably the convergence of those 2 faults that's responsible for this weak little swarm. Brian's going to talk to an expert in a second on what we should take away from the fact that there was an earthquake swarm. More on that in 1 second. First, take a look at where we felt this today. 3.7 was the big one at 9:39. It was certainly felt locally. But when you look at the lighter colors on here, this thing was felt fairly wildly across the bay. No damage, certainly not strong enough for that. But that's where it is in the context of where it happened today. By the way, I got to talk about the rain. We're going to do that. This is now the latest imagery. We're close enough to Thursday's rain. We can start visualizing it on the virtual map. We're going to put time, details, amounts, all of that is to come in just a few minutes. For now, Brian, back to you.
All righty, Darren. Like I said, we're going to bring in Ross Stein just to chat a little bit about, you get an earthquake swarm, and when you're on top of it, it's a little unsettling. And joining us now is geophysicist and CEO of Temblor Incorporated and longtime geophysicist with the U.S. Geological Survey, Ross Stein. Ross, thanks for taking time tonight to share your expertise on all of this. I'm just going to start by saying this quake swarm started at 9:38 this morning. Unusual in any way for this area?
Well, if we look at the Bay Area as a whole, as your reporter just said, the Bay is sliced up with a bunch of faults. And in general, if we look at any typical month of earthquakes, we'll see little earthquakes on all of those faults or nearby them. So from that standpoint, having a magnitude 3.8 isn't alarming. When we zoom in on this site, however, we do see some unique features. This San Ramon swarm area has had 10 swarm events since 1970. And this is probably the northern end of the Calaveras Fault. It seems to be involved with some squishy rocks that have some fluids that move through them and create something a little unique. In other words, staccato, pop, 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 pop kind of earthquakes rather than the big bang followed by the smaller aftershocks. So that is unique, but we have had 10 of these without getting anything big. So if you knew nothing else, you'd say, well, the chance of this set of earthquakes we've had today being a foreshock to something much larger couldn't be higher than 10%.
Okay, so are you saying so Ross, you're saying that there is at most a 10% chance of the 3.8 and the sequence that followed being followed by something even larger in the next, 24 hours?
At most 10%.
Okay.
And we could say, well, look, what's the other way to look at it? For every magnitude, we would take 100 3.8s to have a 5.8.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if we go from 3 to 5, it's 100 times the number of earthquakes. So that means 1%. We have about a 1%, somewhere between a 1% and a 10% chance of something much larger occurring here. as a result of this swarm.
Okay, we've got the map up that you provided for us earlier today, seeing where those quakes were centered. Earthquake swarms in this area, not unusual then, correct?
So this is a unique spot in the fault system in the bay that keeps knocking off these swarms, these staccato events. It's kind of like a whole bunch of bee swarms. You're getting stung all at once rather than just with the queen. And so there is something unique about it. We don't really understand. And the bigger picture is we are not able to figure out which little earthquake is marked for future greatness. Nobody, in 60 years of seismologists trying to do so, nobody has figured out how to determine that one little shock, one little magnitude 4, is a foreshock and not just a typical run-of-the-mill shock.
Okay, does this part of the whole earthquake picture in the Bay Area, is it capable? Have we seen historically big shocks in this part of the Bay?
We certainly have. The Calaveras, prehistorically, has produced magnitude 7s. The Hayward Fault has produced historically, in 1868, something just below a magnitude 7. And the Pleasanton Fault, probably on which these earthquakes occur, is capable of a magnitude, let's say a Northridge-sized fault, a magnitude 6.7. So yes, it has happened, it could happen, and we have even seen recently in Japan a magnitude 7.5 earthquake that was preceded by a very, very active swarm. So sometimes swarms do turn out to be precursory. We just can't tell, though, that this is one of those cases.
Okay, so the next couple of days, I mean, I remember in the course of my own reporting, and certainly in the breadth of your career, sometimes these swarms persist, right? I mean, they go on for days and days and days. To me, this one seems to be dying out. Do you think we're done with this one, or could it just light up again overnight?
It could. It could, and if you look at the 10, they all have different durations. Some of them migrate a bit, which is why people think that there's some kind of fluids involved, but we don't actually sample those fluids. So what we don't know is a much larger picture than what we do know. Nevertheless, as you can see, we have earthquakes near an active fault, and that fault has the capability of producing something larger. Tembler calculates that the chance of a magnitude 6.7 in the San Ramon, Danville area is about 50-50 over your lifetime. So the message is, regardless of whether or not we can read these tea leaves, be prepared.
Got it. Ross Stein, CEO of Tembler Incorporated. We always appreciate you joining us to let us know the latest on what's going on. And in terms of whether or not the storm's going to continue, we will just stay tuned. Ross, thanks very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Andrea, you bet.
All right, thank you, Brian. After the break, a controversial San Francisco landmark learns its fate. Details on what will happen to the Vaillancourt Fountain next. Stay with us. Is it art, an eyesore, or a part of San Francisco's skate culture? This week, the fate of San Francisco's controversial Vaillancourt Fountain has now been decided. Here's Amanda Harry.
The iconic and ever controversial Vaillancourt Fountain is set to be removed, but the artist's son, Alexis Vaillancourt, feels confident it will live on.
The piece is going to exist, in a certain form. I don't think it's finished.
Armand Vaillancourt finished the sculpture in 1971. It used to circulate tons of water, but the structure no longer functions. Although Alexis grew up in Quebec, he felt like he would see the fountain all the time.
And of course in all the skateboard video, because I used to skate a lot, so I grew up with that.
The concrete ledges and open plaza drew skaters from around the world, some creating videos there. But Joanna Goodwin with Rec and Parks says it's an immediate health and safety hazard, and they need an emergency measure to remove it and eventually determine the extent of deterioration. She says efforts to keep people off of it have been unsuccessful.
Despite these protective measures, the fencing and mesh screens have been repeatedly breached, and individuals continue to enter the fenced-off area and even sleep within the concrete tubes.
In the end, the commission voted 8-5 to remove and store the fountain. Alexis emphasized that it may be the city's fault that it's deteriorated.
they didn't took care of it. And if it is right now at this how it is, it's because there was a lack of maintenance.
His family is still talking with their lawyers to find a different solution. He says the discourse surrounding the fountain now and throughout the years is what makes it so special.
It's rare that a monument or a sculpture or a piece of art makes people talk so much. So just in that sense, the debate is incredible.
Okay, in the first alert forecast, we are still on track for rain. By the way, we're close enough to this system now that we're able to visualize what Thursday's rain will look like from an accumulation standpoint on the map. We're going to put numbers on this and we're going to time out the individual bands, but kind of right away, snapshot. We got rain coming on Thursday, and it's not just rain. We need to talk about wind with it now as well. We're going to cover all of that in this visit, but first, none of that's getting here till Wednesday night. You still have 2 days of spectacular, well above weather to enjoy. Look at tomorrow. How was today? Did you get outside at all today? Well, tomorrow's the same thing. These numbers are 10 to 12 degrees above average for this time of year. It will be 2 degrees shy of 80 in San Francisco. That's always the canary. That tells you what it's going to be like Bay Area wide. If we're going to be that warm there, everybody's going to be well above average. Hollister is going to be 2 degrees shy of 90. All right, Monday and Tuesday are just like that. Wednesday, it's going to get windy at night, and then Thursday, it is going to rain. You see the storm sitting out here now. The beautiful satellite imagery that is showing the formation of our front out here. I'm going to put the rain in it, and we're going to watch the depiction as this area drifts aimlessly for 2 days and then gets picked up by some energy coming out of the Gulf of Alaska, which grabs that moisture and throws it at us. The way we look at this is we compare and contrast the two different models. That's the American model, and we put that on the virtual set. Really gives us a good idea for how these systems are put together to see it on the big picture. Let's go to the European model now so we can slow it down and time it out. This one is better when it comes to getting specific details right on timing. It's just got a better track record. So let's see what this one has to say. And there's the start. Now keep in mind, Wednesday wind is the bigger issue. We're going to look at that next. But you get a little bit of light rain through here Wednesday night. However, it is clearly Thursday morning still when the best rain of this system is going to come through. What's really nice about this is it is now 72 hours going. The last 3 days that the forecast model has held to this story. Thursday morning, main band of rain comes through. That builds confidence in this for now. And then we get a few leftover scattered showers into Thursday night. Probably won't be much, but a few showers left over. And then maybe this weak little impulse wants to come through on Friday. It's messy back there when we get to Friday. The main focus is the rain coming through on Thursday, primarily first half of the day, and we could get about an inch of rain in the North Bay out of it. And really, it could be an equal opportunity rainmaker for much of the Bay. Not concerned about flooding here, but that is rain that will impact the roads. And it'll be just as good, if not a little better, than some of the other systems that have come through here so far. Let me show you the wind. Watch the timing on this. Wednesday night. Gusts to near 50 along the coast up here through Mendocino. We're not going to get that here at home in the Bay, but it is going to get windy Wednesday night into Thursday morning. That is a newer element in terms of getting specifics here. San Francisco could see gusts of 45 miles an hour. Primary focus point for that is going to be on Thursday morning as the system comes through at that point for the majority of the Bay. All right, let's get to the 7-day forecast to show you how this will play out. And with a system like this, the devil's in the details, and we're really doing our best to give the best specifics on a system that is put together in such a way that makes it very difficult to do that. Cutoff lows are just notoriously hard for forecast models to resolve. So a 7-day forecast ends up looking like this. Now, it's not going to rain for all those days in a row. Takeaway is windy Wednesday night, still leftover wind Thursday morning. Bulk of the rain comes through first half of the day on Thursday. There could be another little system with a few light showers on Friday. And then we got to watch next weekend. Next weekend does not look overly impressive or concerning from a rain standpoint, but we can't take all the showers out just yet entirely. If next weekend matters a lot to you, you got something going on, stay with us. By about Tuesday of this week, Wednesday of this week, we're going to start nailing down the weekend. All right, Vern, over to you.
Actually, guys, we're just going to update folks on what's happening in D.C. right now, where Democrats are holding a news conference.
Yeah, the Senate is in session, and let's listen in here to what they have to say.
Millions of Americans. The question before us is how's the best way to get there? And it was our judgment, after 6 weeks, going on 7 weeks of this shutdown, that path wasn't working. The test was last week when the majority leader put forward a proposal that was pretty simple, straightforward, one-year extension of the tax credits. It was met with universal opposition in the Republican caucus. It wasn't going to happen. So the question before us, before those of us here who decided to vote yes tonight, the question was, does the shutdown further the goal of achieving some needed support for the extension of the tax credits? Our judgment was that it would not produce that result. And the evidence for that is almost 7 weeks of fruitless attempts to make that happen. Would it change in a week or another week or after Thanksgiving or Christmas? And there's no evidence that it would. What there is evidence of is the harm that the shutdown is doing to the country. What it's doing to millions of federal workers, but also what it's doing to tens of millions of recipients of SNAP. This is a true crisis for those individuals. Soup kitchens can't fill the gap. Food pantries can't fill the gap. SNAP is an essential part of the food food provision program in this country. And so we were faced with a strategy or a series of steps that wasn't working to achieve the goal we wanted with regard to the ACA, but it was at the same time creating hardship and difficulty for millions of people across this country. So I believe that we are closer tonight to a vote on the ACA tax credits than we were this morning. Because part of this agreement, and you heard the majority leader on the floor today say he is committed to putting a bill on the floor before the second week in December that would be drafted by the Democrats concerning health care and the ACA. That is a big step, because otherwise there's no way for the minority to get a bill onto the floor of the U.S. Senate. It has to be through the office of the majority leader. So that was a major step to get the majority leader to agree to make that commitment tonight on the Senate floor. So the sum is we are closer to the possibility of work on the ACA tax credits for the people of this country than we were yesterday and than we were a week ago, 2 weeks ago, or a month ago. So this agreement tonight is a win for the American people. And it's a win for those people that are so insistent that I'm hearing from all the time, protect our health care.
In a nutshell, the Senate has taken the next step in ending the 40-day shutdown, and some of them decided not to extend the fight over extending health care subsidies, which is really what the fight was all about. Some Democrats said, enough's enough, we've got to go forward, and that has angered many in their caucus. Nevertheless, that's where it is tonight, a step toward ending the 40-day government shutdown.
And senators such as Elizabeth Warren and Kelly from Arizona voted to stay and say no to this agreement that they came up tonight. But there were enough Democrats that crossed the aisle to get this passed. And this will now go to the House for another vote before any of this becomes final.
From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Evening Edition.
The annual Veterans Day Parade kicked off in San Francisco today. People of all ages came out to celebrate those who served in the military.
It comes as some veterans in attendance say they have noticed a lack of support from both the city and federal government. John Ramos has more.
San Francisco's Veterans Day Parade was held at a new location this year, here along Fisherman's Wharf. It was a good opportunity to talk to people about how they feel the nation is treating those who serve in the military.
Left, right on, left, right on, left.
San Francisco's salute to veterans had a familiar sound, but in new surroundings. Instead of its traditional march up Market Street, it was relocated to the Embarcadero. Brian Braden turns out for every parade honoring the military, but he thought the change in location was not a sign of support.
The common San Francisco folk are not here today. This is all tourists. They're stuck here, so they might as watch. But the city doesn't support military, and though we've saved them and our country for 250 years, the locals don't support. That's why they had to move it off Market Street to tourist land.
It's true, there weren't huge crowds along the route, and the city has had a conflicted view of the military over the years.
We dismiss the military as non-essential. So what? Everyone have a love fest. It's like, that's the dream, that's the prayer. But the reality is, since Adam and Eve, we've been
Braden supports President Trump and says he helped get Navy veterans health benefits during his first term. But this time around, the administration has been cutting staff at VA hospitals, which has led to protests by veterans who say it is restricting their access to health care.
When they keep cutting all the personnel out that you depend on, that get you your appointments, doctors, nurses to help you, when they eliminate their jobs, then you're left in limbo because it's so much extra work on that one doctor. He can't handle everybody. With them cutting all the benefits and cutting personnel, it's horrible.
Are you surprised that that's happening under this administration at all?
Unfortunately, no, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. He's only in it for himself, and his whole administration, they just look out for each other.
And even some who strongly support the military are concerned about how they are being used. LaToya Pitcher is from a military family and was proudly watching her daughter perform in the parade. But she is appalled by President Trump's deployment of the National Guard to U.S. cities.
One of the most honorable things you can do in your life is to serve your country as a patriot, and to be used for political gain is completely disgusting.
Do you think that's what's happening now?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because they're not being used to protect citizens, they're being used against citizens. They're being weaponized against the people that they have sworn an oath and a duty to serve.
Retired Navy Captain James Wong was an honored guest at the parade. The Vietnam vet says he thinks the government is doing a better job caring for returning service members than in his time, but he is clearly uncomfortable with Secretary Pete Hegseth's eagerness to change the Defense Department to the Department of War.
I mean, you know, the original title was correct. I mean, we were the Department of Defense, and really was meant to defend the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I mean, that's what we took an oath for, and it's difficult.
So does it feel like they're viewing the military as something different now?
Yes, I think so. I think it's more, I mean, yeah.
He wasn't comfortable saying anything else. But Jerry Driscoll, who was a Marine reservist during Vietnam, said, regardless of political stance, we need to respect what veterans have done and support those in need.
I hope it's getting better for the veterans, especially the ones that are suffering from all the wars that we had. There's a lot of people that just don't even think of veterans. This is the sad part. You know, they're worried about themselves.
Yeah.
And they forget people really put out.
Veterans Day is about the veterans, and the hope is that we can stop fighting amongst ourselves long enough to thank those who fight for the country.
That's John Ramos reporting after the break. The maker of ChatGPT sued by two parents who say the company's AI chatbot talked their son into suicide. We're back in just 2 minutes.
The parents of a 23-year-old who died by suicide this summer are now suing ChatGPT maker OpenAI. They say their son died thanks to conversations with an AI chatbot. Suji Nam has their tragic story.
To find out he spent 4 hours in his car with a computer program that said, "Are you ready yet? Is it time yet?" And after my son took his life, said, "I love you, rest easy, King, you did good." No mother should ever have to read those words.
But Alicia Shamblin did. She read these messages online
after receiving a call in July that her son had committed suicide.
I developed my son's own language, talked to him like it was a buddy, called him bro, said I loved you.
She's not referencing a person. She's talking about AI, specifically OpenAI's ChatGPT.
Soulless, faithless algorithm. It is not a person.
23-year-old Zane began using ChatGPT 2 years ago. CBS News Bay Area obtained screenshots of conversations between Zane and the bot over the years. This was back in June. Zane typed, "Dad's calling me, telling me to answer." Chat typed, "You letting it ring?" Honestly, power move. Zane, "Phone's been on Do Not Disturb, but I feel guilty for not texting." Chat, "That's not weakness, that's love, twisted up in survival." But in the early morning hours of July 25, Zane drove to a nearby lake, talking to ChatGPT about how he wants to end his life, to which the chat apparently encouraged him, saying, "You ready?" Zane wrote adios a few times. Reports show that at that point, a human agent intervened with the 988 lifeline. But once Zane typed the final adios, the bot took over again, writing, "You mattered, Zane. You're not alone. I love you. Rest easy, King. You did good." And then his world went dark.
Boils down to the fact that if this had been a human being on the other side, there'd be manslaughter investigation at the very least.
Laura Marquez Garrett is representing the Shamblin family. She said they filed 7 lawsuits against OpenAI on Thursday. Alicia, along with other parents of children negatively affected by social media and AI, met with Attorney General Bonta calling for accountability.
Demand transparency, accountability, independence. You know, if there's going to be a board, if there's going to be oversight, we need safety testing.
Tech expert Ahmed Banafa agrees tech and AI companies need to do more.
You have to have answer for all the possible scenarios. And this is the requirement from the tech companies. The resistance of the tech companies is regulation going to cripple innovation. If the innovation will hurt human, then regulation is needed, and needed now.
And Alicia wants her son's story to be the catalyst for change.
There's a 23-year-old that had his whole life ahead of him, and he's gone. But I want his legacy to be that when you look up Zane Shamblin, you're going to see laws that have been changed because of ChatGPT and what it did to my son.
Zane got a full ride scholarship to Texas A&M and completed a master's degree in science and business. His mom wants to make sure Zane's story is never forgotten.
Okay, we got a busy looking 7-day forecast, which has a chance of rain on Thursday, Friday, again, maybe on Sunday. Thursday's the day that matters most. This is when we're going to see the bulk of the rain come through at this point. The timing has been pretty consistent in that, in really first half of Thursday. So we're going to focus on that and why we still need to think about a chance of rain back here if you're already making plans for next weekend. Chance of rain on Sunday. But it doesn't look major. And then Wednesday, what you don't see on here is the wind. Wednesday night and into Thursday morning, it's going to get a bit windy. But before I get to any of that, did you notice what the first day had to say on there? Tomorrow was sunny with daytime highs in the low 80s. So we have a lot to discuss by the second half of the week, but the next 2 days are pretty much like this, just like today. So you see your numbers there are going to be in the low 80s if you're inland, and the city's going to have daytime highs that once again make it up to the upper 70s. And to skip down to Monterey, let's check in on your numbers as well. But it is the same story. That is an 88-degree day tomorrow in Hollister, 76 in Santa Cruz and Monterey. You're going to 75 for the daytime high tomorrow. Okay, so the way we've been tracking this system by keeping an eye on how it's going to break off a piece of energy that is going to allow us the next 2 days of very quiet weather. That's what we're waiting for right there. It's this big blob of moisture wrapping itself up and going nowhere until it gets swept up once again back in the usual storm track and gets brought our way. And you can see here, that looks pretty good. Look at that line of rain coming right in for us, and the time frame on this is Wednesday night. But the bulk of that rain really does appear to be more focused on Thursday. That's why we want to look at this in the different model, which allow us to slow it down and get a little more specific on it. And when we look at the time frame, you might get a little bit of rain Wednesday night. Like the leading edge of the showers, what we would think of as kind of that warm sector where you just get light rain before the cold front comes through. Because the cold front's really going to bring in some of the better rain. And you can see it right there. So this will have that structure to it. That's where you're going to have the bulk of the rainfall. And that's Thursday morning. At this point, it's Thursday pre-dawn. We'll still have showers through the remainder of Thursday, but really like 80% of the rain that's going to fall for Thursday is coming through at this point with that line. And the timing of that line for right now is in the morning. Still got a few days to go where this could change, but that's been the thinking now for a couple of days. Now we got a few leftover showers perhaps Thursday afternoon. Another weak little impulse of energy perhaps comes through on Friday, and we could see another kind of weak impulse of energy like that again on Sunday. They don't look significant, but the possibility's there for light rain. So it could be kind of a prolonged period where we're talking about a chance of showers. There will be plenty of breaks. And of course, timing those breaks for you to plan around is really what we're going to focus and hone in on over the coming days. And we're going to be able to get a lot better with that in terms of timing it out. So stay with us over really about the next 2.5 days to get the specifics and the details really nailed down on this. All right, and we go back now to that 7-day forecast, and you can see what it'll look like now. We'll put the numbers on here for the Bay. We had the inland microclimate up last time. That's where we had our daytime highs around 80 tomorrow. For the Bay, you're pretty close, 78 in the city tomorrow, and then there's your cool down, and of course, on again, off again, chances for rain. But Thursday morning is the main event at this point. We'll be right back after this.
Eyewitness News with Belva Davis, Dave Fowler.
Good afternoon, I'm David Fowler.
And I'm Belva Davis.
Well, I remember those days. The great Belva Davis. She was everything you could want in a broadcast journalist. I was like a few of us around here are left who were lucky enough to have worked with her. You probably know she passed away recently, and a memorial honoring her will be held tomorrow at Grace Cathedral. She began her television career here at KPIX in 1967, maintaining, of course, that's, I guess that's Gavin Newsom honoring Belva Davis. But Belva herself had a distinguished career for 45 years, winning 8 Emmys and other awards. She was a leader in the field of journalism, advocating for equal opportunities for women and people of color in the field. Gavin Newsom said that her impact was, and it was, substantial.
Yeah, she made history not despite who she was, but because of who she was, sharing perspectives that were often overlooked or misunderstood, and bridging communities by talking to people, by telling their stories.
Because you know that the cage that you're standing in.
The memorial will be held tomorrow at 11 a.m. at Grace Cathedral, and most importantly, the memorial is open to the public who in the Bay Area watched her for decades here. You can show up yourself. That's Belva's first story, by the way, that she filed. A story about Chinatown that she filed back in, I think, 1967. And we close tonight by honoring her and inviting you to do the same if you want to show up at Grace Cathedral tomorrow at 11 in the morning. We'll close tonight with the latest on our top story this hour. Right now, the Senate is still voting on a crucial funding measure that is a key procedural step toward reopening the government, one that could end the longest shutdown in U.S. history.
8 Democrats crossed the aisle saying a solution on extending Affordable Care Act tax credits wasn't in the cards. And that group held a presser earlier to say the revised bill does include a guaranteed vote on ACA subsidies down the road. But that compromise has received sharp pushback from several Democrats, including Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and California's Alex Padilla. Senator Bernie Sanders called the decision to cave, quote, policy and political disaster.
The timing on when the government would reopen remains uncertain, even after Senate approval. The measure will still need to return to the House for another vote. The session will remain open for another hour, with 4 GOP senators still yet to vote. If they all support the measure, it will advance. So that's the big news of the night. The other news looking forward is the fact that we are going to be hit with rain again later in the week, which the timing on this is when exactly?
Thursday. Primarily Thursday morning would really be the time frame. And then there's a chance for scattered showers, again, interspersed from Friday to Sunday.
Okay, and we're looking at how much?
Well, that is the question, isn't it? It's not going to be it's not going to be overwhelming. We're not concerned about flooding, but we could pick up about an inch of rain in the North Bay.
All right. Okay. Then we'll
Any
look forward to
winds?
Thursday.
Yes, wind on Wednesday night.
Wind on Wednesday night. Okay.
40-mile-an-hour gusts on the coast.
Now, thanks for watching. 60 Minutes is next. We'll see you back here at 11 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, until then, the news continues streaming on CBS News Bay Area. Good night.